Hello. Welcome back to the podcast. I hope you all are wow, let's try this again. I hope you are all having a great start to your new year and is kind of settling into this energy of the 7 year. So I know for me, there has been a lot of emotional releases and just this call to kind of slow down, relax, rest, don't rush things. And I've just, yeah, I've really been called to do that. And it's been an interesting ride because oftentimes we like take off into the new year. And I felt like I've kind of had to put on some brakes and really like hone in on what do I want to focus on. Like multitasking hasn't been much of a thing around here, lots of family stuff. And like when I am working on projects, it's like, how specific can I get? And then I really see my energy kind of like provide for me. So, with that being said, I want to just jump into our topic today and talk about this dependency we have on knowing why. And there's so many perspectives we can take on this. So I'm going to provide my perspective and really how I've kind of got to this viewpoint on our need to know why, our need to provide why. And I'll kind of like look at this through a few different lenses. And I would love to just hear your guys' feedback and opinions on this as well. Because really diving into who am I explaining myself for, why, the why of why do I feel like I need more information? And, it's like this has been a reoccurring theme for me over the course of my healing journey, over the course of being a parent, really the last like 4 years of becoming more self-aware and just getting curious. I'm like, wow, we really depend on this knowing of why things are happening, why this is our decision, right? And why we say the things we say. And so there's this level of curiosity that's very healthy. And so just to start, I want to talk about the benefits of our curiosity and needing to know why and that dependency, right? That it's there for a reason. One, our ego and our mind has that need to know for safety. It wants to know, what is this pattern that we're stepping into? What is this? What is the reason behind this? And the more information we can know, the safer we can kind of like plan things out, visualize things, prepare for things, right? So it's this safety that comes from our ego and also probably our physical body from years of conditioning of this is the information that I need to feel prepared, to feel safe. And so the benefits of asking why and getting curious and really like looking at the layers of everything is to give us that clarity, to help us figure out what our truth is, to help us gain that knowledge that we need, right? If we don't ask us ourselves, even why are we doing this? You might find that you're just in the same patterns and routines and then you take some time to slow down and ask yourself, why am I doing this? And you're like, I don't know, so there's this benefit of slowing down and asking yourself why. But what I've learned is you really need to be clear on what your intention is when you're dependent on that why, when you are spending that time and energy to get curious and to ask those questions. And it can be a slippery slope because there's the perspective of doing it for your own self-awareness, for your own curiosity. And then there's this perspective of, I need to know things that don't really matter, that really aren't important to me. Okay. If we look at this through like an energetic lens, and even through human design, I see this a lot with somebody with an undefined head or ajna. It could be both, a combination of both. And even if you have it defined, you could relate to this as well. But there's really this discernment that needs to happen of what is important to me. What opinions, what information that is coming in is important. And I can see this conditioning underneath that of, I need to know more. I need to know why, when it really comes down to, is this important to me? Am I fishing for more information? Am I like waiting for more information, or kind of digging for more information for a purpose outside of me? And oftentimes we can get caught up in that when we're around other people who might be really opinionated about something or have strong opinions. And you can kind of hold on to that as your own. And then when you really dig in, you're like, this isn't important to me. This doesn't affect what I need to know to move forward. And so that's just like one example of where energetically you can recognize and slow down, like, am I looking for more for myself, to prove myself, to figure out if somebody else is right or wrong? That's a big one. Sometimes we will want to know why and want to know more for this like kind of proving energy where like this or that needs to happen. And when we can catch ourselves in those moments where, let's slow down, right? Let's take a breath. That's actually been the energy of my new year, is like, you need to slow down, and the whys, the information that you're seeking, it needs to be more inward facing rather than about everyone around you or maybe your environment. And this is coming to me right now. It's like, of course, like we're in a 7-year. It's like the things that we're curious about, the things that really kind of like get us to ask those good questions, even if it includes the why. It's like, where is that rooted in? Where is that question rooted? Is it coming from a place in your body? Do you feel it emotionally? Do you feel it like as pressure? Like, is there this pressure to need to know why? And can you reveal that? Like, allow yourself to reveal it. Give yourself permission to reveal, where is this desire, this dependency to know why coming from? And it might be that it is from your heart, and it's going to help you reveal your truth. It's going to help you gain clarity on what is it that you believe. That curiosity is very healthy, is very much needed for our growth and expansion. So the first thing is to know when like where there's this healthy curiosity versus where am I over explaining myself? Where am I placing blame on other things or people just for the sake of explaining why? We do this all the time. I want to start with boundaries. Boundaries are huge. I'm still moving through lessons on boundaries, and I just want to bring this lens first because I think this is probably going to be the most relatable. And then I'm going to go back and kind of talk about some of the root energies that are causing that. Okay. So with boundaries, we oftentimes want to explain why. Like, hey, do you want to go to the movies? Do you want to do this? Do you want to take this trip? Right. And if we are saying yes or no, doesn't matter. Are you attaching a why? And I can't remember her name. Maybe I'll put it in the notes if I can remember to think about this or to look at her profile on Instagram. But she is so good at just saying, like, your answer is enough. Yes or no is enough. And when we can sit with that ourselves and say, what is the answer that I'm feeling? What is my intuition telling me? How do I want to respond to this? And you don't have to get curious with yourself unless you really want to. Like, unless you want to know why your intuition is telling you that, why that's your answer, it may or may not come to you. Where this gets a little foggy is where we feel this need to explain why to other people. And then let's say it is like a weekend trip with your girlfriends, and maybe you want to go, maybe you don't. Let's say you really don't, and you have the intuition to know that, this isn't the right opportunity for me. So then when you go to communicate that, you can even imagine yourself right now, like, how would you communicate that? I have seen it with myself, with my clients, with my friends, with my family. So often, one of the number one things that we blame or use the reason why for is money. Now, there might be other things. It could be, I have this obligation. I have another trip coming up that, I want to save for it. Like, still kind of going back to money, but there's all these other entities that you could use in your why. Now, whether that is really the reason why or not, I want you to think about the energetics of the need. Like, why are you providing a reason? Because in our physical body, how that feels is, okay, I know my answer. I know the clarity. I have the knowing that this is not an opportunity for me. So my answer is no. At some point, we think that that is not enough. And so we want to start thinking, okay, what other information can I provide that maybe will help comfort the other party, that maybe helps comfort yourself? It isn't always like to please or give enough information for the other party. Sometimes it is literally, I need to figure this out. And so I might place blame on something. And a lot of times I do see the money. And that's another discussion that we can talk about with how that affects our relationship with money. If we're always using that as our why to not do something. Because if you really wanted to do something, if you really wanted to go on the weekend trip and you thought money was the reason why you can't or won't, that's just another layer to look at. Because if your body is saying, yes, this is an opportunity for me, and you think, okay, maybe the money is an obstacle. No. The money, you're able to do whatever it is that you desire, especially if it's aligned with your intuition, with your heart, with your higher self. The money's gonna be there, yeah, right? You're gonna figure it out. You ever think about something that you absolutely really wanted to do? Like, you figured it out, right? You might have made a budget, you might have done something extra to figure it out, but you figured it out. So the boundaries in explaining why to other people is very conditioned. I think about in our friendships and our close groups, there is kind of this underlying expectation that you're going to provide more than a yes or no. And I've really had to deconstruct this for myself, because I've had to ask, why is there this expectation, right? This is the clarity that I'm talking about. Like, if you want to get curious with yourself and say, who is holding this expectation that I need to provide more information than yes or no? It might be me to a certain extent. I don't want to feel their emotional reaction if I'm disappointing them. I might think I'm responsible for their reaction. And that's something that can be shifted. Because if somebody's asking you, do you want to do this? You know that you could say yes or no. So this need to say why might have come from this expectation at, like, maybe when you were growing up, there was the expectation to explain yourself, right? And of course, like, I think about in education, to no one's fault, there's a lot of needing to know why. How did you get to that answer? Show your work. Explain how you got here, right? We're really taken away from this knowing and this deciding that this is my answer with no explanation. So I've really had to unpack this for myself to see, oh, there is this kind of cultural expectation to explain ourselves, to provide more information, to provide our why. When it comes down to, I get to decide, and I don't owe an explanation to anyone. And that's my truth, right? There's some people that I will give more information for. There's some people that I'm open to having this conversation, but I am still very careful and truthful and honest with my why. I've learned to not blame money, right? Like I talked about that example a little bit ago. I've learned to not blame others. I was in my past marriage, my first marriage, I often used my spouse as an excuse. There was a lot of fear underlined in that. But, when it comes down to, do you want to do something? It's not up to anyone else. And so where are you allowing these other energies to come in and be your decision maker and to be your reason why? So with decisions are this kind of, I want to say like addiction to needing to know why, to needing to know what's going to happen next, is really putting this veil up between you and your intuition. And it gets you to not trust yourself. There's a lot of things growing up that it takes away from this self-trust, from this knowing that you can receive an answer, you can know the answer in your body, but you still need to find proof. You still need to be able to justify it, right? And there's a lot of that is just it's part of our society, it's part of a lot of people's beliefs. And so it's up to you to decide, is this my truth? Is this how I want to operate? I know if you're probably listening to this, you are in a space where you are wanting to trust yourself. You do trust yourself. So how can you communicate what you know is true without pleasing others? Like, it's not that you're there to ignore others and their desires, but when it comes down to making decisions for yourself, the decision has nothing to do with anyone else. And if it comes to, upsetting others or like being sensitive to their feelings, that's something to explore. Like when you are getting curious about, okay, is there a fear here of the unknown? Is there a fear where I feel like I need to justify my answer? I need to provide more information. If you can sit with that and get curious about, okay, why do I feel the need to have more of a justification for my desire, for my answer, for my decision? That is what you want to ask yourself why about. I would say most of the reframe can be done when you are in a situation and you're feeling like, I need to come up with a reason. I need to come up with an excuse. I need to justify this. Who are you trying to prove? Most of my clients have come back to me and said, it was me. Like, yes, there were outside forces that I also felt like I needed to give this explanation to, but oftentimes it was internal. It was, I like within myself, I needed to have more information. I needed to know why. I needed to know why my intuition was telling me this. And I would say majority of the time, we don't need to know why. Because when we do trust ourselves fully, when we do trust ourselves to listen to our intuition and follow that, the why is always bigger than what you could ever imagine. Our ego, our mind does want that safety of like, your intuition's telling you this, but why? Like, what is this going to look like? How is this going to play out? So that's where a lot of people fall into the freeze. response because they have the awareness, they have the knowing of what their truth is, of what their answer is, of what the next step is. But the trust causes them to freeze, causes them to go back into the patterns and the responses that they know will satisfy others. And for many years, that's been enough to satisfy themselves. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 on my computer. So get really curious. And so this is the thing. When you get curious, you want to kind of slow down a bit. Like, who are you getting curious for? And make sure it's yourself. And some of that is, are there certain people in my life where I do feel like I owe more of an explanation? Why? Has it been an exchange? Do they always provide you with an explanation? And in this kind of exploration and curiosity, you get to decide what you need, what you want to provide. And this is really empowering when you're working with others, because when you show up and you are so set in your knowing, in your truth, and you can keep that kind of clear line of communication between you, your intuition, like it's you, right? Like it's not something separate from you. So it's a matter of like, this is my knowing, whatever it is, and fully trusting that and knowing like whatever is true for you is enough. You don't have to go outside of that to provide explanation, to justify yourself. And the less energy you spend justifying yourself and explaining yourself, the more confident you're going to come across, right? Now, and I said in the beginning, there's so many ways where getting curious and having this knowing and clarity to be able to have these discussions with others is very potent. Like that's like the juice of this, because it's not about questioning, it's not about putting the blame on something other than you. It is, this is my decision, and that's it, right? So when there's conversation about why, or about, would there be a better time? Like, let's talk about the trip. Would there be a different time you would want to go? Those are questions that you would have to come back to yourself and then find that clarity to be able to communicate that. But it's like, the more you do this, the more you're just prepared to say, this is my decision, then the easier, like the clearer that communication is going to be for the next thing and the next thing after that. It's like the muscle. It's like intuition muscle. And that's what the intuition, like, that's what they're saying. Like, this is the key to intuition is like deciding. You don't need the fluff, right? You got the download, you got the hit from your intuition, you got the knowing, like however you receive it. We all receive it differently. However you receive it, you got that. Trust that and act on that. And know like more is gonna come. They're not gonna be like, it's not gonna come back to where like, oh dang, I didn't figure out a reason why. So having that confidence is really what's going to kind of like build this foundation of trust with yourself. At some point, try this out. Like, this could be like, what do you want to eat? Like, this could be very simple. It doesn't have to be this big thing in your life right now. Where are you searching for explanations or excuses? Whether it's within yourself or to provide other people, where are you expecting it from other people too? So how are you receiving people's decisions? This might be a good indication of like where you're at too. because oftentimes we'll expect the same thing from others that we think we need to provide. So, where do you expect people to explain themselves? Where do you allow that space for people to trust themselves and show you? And these are where some of the healthiest friendships have come up for me. I am surrounded by amazing people, and my favorite relationships I have are with those who allow me space to come to a decision, because I am emotional. Sometimes I like to ride my wave to kind of like have that clarity with what my decision is and what my intuition's telling me. So my friends that allow me that space to come to my own decision, and not they don't need the fluff. They just want to know where I'm at. What is my decision? And it's reciprocated. I'm able to ask them questions, and I give them space to respond if they need it. And when they come back with their decision, I'm not here asking for more. And that is one of the healthiest things for my boundaries. If people, and like communicating that, right? So I work with human design. I pretty much know everyone's human design that is in my life. And so I know, even if they aren't aware of their human design, I know, like, if they're sacral, I'm not going to ask them this open-ended question necessarily and expect them to like have clarity. I'm going to ask them yes or no questions. Would you be interested in going on a girls trip later this year? Yes or no? You know, rather than where would you want to go on a girls trip? That's going to be a little bit harder for them to respond if they're a sacral being. Now, like, if I know their authority or kind of how they operate with decision making, I'm going to support that. I'm also going to encourage them to make their own decision. I'm not here to influence anyone. So that's kind of that similar energy of like, who's there to influence your decision? Who are you trying to influence, right? And that's where you can start with your boundaries. Identifying, how are my relationships? Who in my life expects more from me, like of an explanation of why? And can I communicate that that's not something I'm willing to provide? And if that is something that you want to provide, like if you are somebody who genuinely wants to just give it all to people, I would challenge that and say, like, where is your safety with the unknown? Where is your position with trusting yourself, of just knowing the answer and not necessarily knowing why or what's to come of it? Because that's going to be a big piece in hearing your intuition or receiving messages intuitively. Because if you are wanting the answer plus an explanation all the time, that explanation is often going to come from your ego, your mind. It could often be rooted in fear, because that's going to be what comes first when it comes to needing to know more information. So trusting that what you first receive, whether it's a decision, and if you are into human design and you follow your authority, that's a huge way to get started. It's how I got started, really kind of experimenting with just trusting myself and not looking for any explanation. And I'll tell you, if you're emotional, that's kind of, it's a bit of a ride, because your emotions want to attach to reasons. Like your ego wants to attach your emotions to reasons and to meanings. Like your ego wants to find a meaning for this feeling, right? And then you kind of want to attach your decision to that meaning. That's why I do energy work every single day, because it releases the attachments to the emotions. It releases to the attachments of my memories to the emotions and why things might be a certain way. I'll give an example of this. Last year there was a concert that my wife and her sisters all wanted to go to. Honestly, historically, I would say, yeah, I would love to go to that concert. It was somebody who I enjoy listening to. And this was a time where I was like full on experimental with my intuition and authority. And so I I wasn't feeling any type of like emotional wave at the time. And also this wasn't a huge emotional decision. It was like, do you want to go to this concert or not? And I will say a lot of decisions are often made for me. It's kind of like, oh, Amy's going and Caitlin's going too. Like, right? Like there's these things. You might have relationships like this in your life too, where your decision is often made up for you before you're even asked. That's a fun one. And so that was kind of the situation. So I had to step back and say, well, let me decide if I want to go. And we all have kids. So I was like, somebody's got to watch the kids. And so that was where I wanted to start thinking of a reason why not. I think I already knew that I didn't want to go. Like I had received that information, but right away, my mind was like, find a reason, find an excuse. They're going to want to know why. And I would say most people, like if it's family or like really close friends, those are the people we often want to provide more information for. And so I caught myself of like, I need an excuse. I need to find a reason why. They're going to think this, they're going to think that. Okay. And I even talked to Amy about this. I was like, I don't need to go. Like, this is a no for me. And she knew right away, like, this is where the energy of just deciding can be really powerful because she is not huge into human design, but she witnessed right away, like, oh, you just like, it's okay. You just don't want to go. And she actually kind of helped me like navigate that of like, it's okay to just not want to go. And, of course there's like these relationship things where she's like, of course I want you to go, but like, if you don't want to, like, that's okay. And so like, where are you attached to like how people respond, how people react, and like what you think other people want you to say? That's a huge one. This last year was a lot of releasing the expectation of what other people think I'm going to say. So it turned out that I just ended up saying no. And of course there was the why, well, what are you going to do? Why not? Like, do you have something else going on? And they're family. So I answered some questions. I was like, no, I don't have anything else going on. But, at this point, I'm just not interested in going. And it's not a full body yes. I use that a lot. I'm like, it's not a full body yes. So I'm going to step out of this one. Like, I'm going to skip this. And I think it was a bit of a like, not a shock for anyone, but just kind of like, it's like, oh, Caitlin's not doing this. And she's not, and like, and so Amy still went, my wife still went. And, that was like really one of the first times I could observe my nervous system kind of like panicking and needing to like find an excuse. And I said, nope, we are safe. And knowing that it's a no. It was kind of funny because then after that it was like, it's a no for me. And so it was a thing. It just kind of opened up the space for all of us in that group that we had to be able to communicate no, right? Like sometimes in friend groups or even in families, like you don't hear each other say no. And so when you do hear it, you're like, what? Like it's very confusing. And so get familiar with saying no, try it out. And it could be the opposite, right? Like it doesn't have to be no. I'm just saying like whatever your decision is, if you think that it's not a common decision, if you haven't set that boundary before in the past, of course there's going to be some regulation trying to happen in your body. And what I recommend is taking that time with yourself, right? Your intuition is it's there. It's you, right? So being with yourself through these decisions, breath work, tapping, meditation. I like dance it out. I just like kind of move around if I feel like, oh, there's this energy and this like pressure or expectation to explain myself. Like literally, you can like it's energy, right? dance it out, work it out, and like set the intention that this expectation, this way of being, this pattern that I've had to explain myself before can be released. And that's why, yeah, again, I do energy work every day. It just kind of like sets the tone to like stay clear with who I am and my truth, stay connected so I can communicate, so I can set these boundaries. So this was kind of like this went real, I don't know, stuff came up in this conversation that I wasn't expecting, but I do want to just touch on like the root of all of this. All right, we've talked about some of the conditioning and why why we have this need to explain ourselves or provide why. And for me, this was a huge thing with control. And it wasn't until I looked at it from the perspective of what do I expect from other people, of like, what do I want them to provide? For me, it was a matter of control. It was a matter of being able to play things out in my head, be able to predict things. How is this going to look? And like, not allowing myself to be disappointed by other people. And so that anytime I can observe myself, like having a specific interaction and specific attachment or energy in that interaction, it's a mirror for what's happening within me. So the same way I want to control from like hearing the explanation from other people, I had that need for control within myself. So of course I have energies in my human design chart where I can really like hold on and grasp really tightly around this need to know, right? This control, this vision. And it really kind of sets you up for these expectations of patterns to play out, of habits to continue. And so releasing that and getting really comfortable of like the unknown, like allowing space for your intuition to come in. Because if you're truly following your intuition, like you can't predict what it's going to say. You can't predict what your decision is going to be for something next week if you don't know what the question is. And it's really about coming back to the present moment. Like it's a matter of all I know is what I know right now. And of course I have the knowledge and wisdom from past experiences. Of course I have the intentions to set for right now or even in the future. But where am I living and making this decision and knowing like if I'm worried about how it's going to play out, that's control. If I'm worried about something that happened in the past and it's affecting my decision right now, that's control. Oftentimes fear will hold us back from making a decision because of past experiences. So how can we loosen our grips on that control and live a little bit more in the unknown? And that's where it comes in with the trust. You have to set the intention to open space for your intuition to come through, for you to hear yourself, not just your ego, right? You want all the voices. You want all the perspectives. Of course, you want to hear what your mind's saying because they know the patterns. They have the memories. They have this safety key, right? So let that do its job, but also hear your intuition. Open up space for that. And that's where you start building that trust. That's where the intuition comes in. So okay, I'm going to pull a couple cards. I feel like this was something that a lot of you were ready to hear. And maybe some of it is a little bit, you just got to sit with this. So I encourage you to sit with this and look back and see, what from this conversation is your truth? What do you need to kind of explore yourself, get curious with just between you and yourself, your higher self, whatever, and trust that, what does come through, it's safe to explore and implement, take action on. Okay, let me see. I kind of stopped pulling cards here. Ooh, okay. We have two earth cards. Okay. We have the Six of Earth, and then we have the Queen of Earth, which is like Pentacles. And then we have, this is good, Air, which is like Swords. Okay. And then we have the Father. So what I'm getting is there's this balance of like trust. Well, of course, there's the balance of trust. But what is going to ground you in your truth is to get curious with yourself, is to allow the inspiration and the ideas and the opinions to come to you, and you take that time in your space to decide, what is my truth? How is this influencing my beliefs, the way I see things, the way I look at things? And there's this balance, like the Queen of Earth and the Father are like both looking at me kind of like, you need both. Like you need this flow of being able to receive, but then you need that discernment of deciding, okay, this is what this is what I'm holding on to. This is my truth, and this is how I'm stepping forward. And there's this confidence with that. There's so much confidence in these cards. There's like this grasp of like challenge, like, and this right now, this might feel very challenging to some of you. Like, where do you find yourself hesitating? There's like an oracle waiting for you to tap into. There is this, the way I'm like getting the picture is like put yourself in a portal or almost like a bubble and allow everything that needs to bounce off the walls and come back to you be like new information, kind of like clear the clutter and say, okay, what is everything I'm holding on to? You can see it in your bubble and know that everything that's no longer serving you, you can clear out. And what is your truth is still going to be there. And then be really grounded in that. Like there's like this growth that can come by like being certain and knowing that what you know, what your truth is enough. And it's not for anyone else, it's for yourself. I'm going to pull one more card from the Moonology deck. Now we're going to wrap up. Okay, I guess we're doing two. We have New Moon in Cancer. You and your loved ones are safe. Full Moon in Aries, which is a fiery climax approaches. I love these cards. So the safety, New Moon in Cancer, it's like this nurturing energy, right? And what this is saying is like, release the fears you have about other people. Release this expectation that you think somebody else is holding with you for you, because when you release that, you're releasing it for them too. And there's this like nurturing hold, like it's almost like a blanket, like a warm blanket, is like the people who love you, the people who are there for you are going to support you no matter what. And that nurturing energy is there no matter what your explanation is, no matter what your reason is. So stop focusing on that, right? You and your loved ones are safe. It's safe for you to be certain in your truth. And it's safe for your loved ones to hear your truth, to experience your truth. And a fiery climax approaches, this is kind of like, there might be some combustion. There might be some like not even confusion, but this new energy. When you're set in your truth, you are always going to bring new energy, because oftentimes what happens is people will expect you to respond in the same way, to have the same beliefs. And there's something very powerful and potent that brings this kind of like fiery energy to standing in your truth and to being able to come respectfully to a conversation or to the decision, and know that like that nurturing love is still there no matter what your decision is. And if somebody's going to come to you and say, because you made this decision, right, this is changing, how can you receive that with love? Because maybe it was that decision that needed to happen for the truth to really be revealed. And when it comes to relationships, this is heavy on, like, the first 4 cards were heavy on like that relationship with yourself and being really grounded, and then extending that out to the trust of that love with your relationships with those close to you, those that really love you, those that are there with love are going to trust your knowings. They're going to support what you know, what you step into with, like, I'm getting like this warm blanket. Okay. So allow things to like sizzle out how they need to. Other people's responses, reactions to your decisions are not your responsibility. Sit in that one for a minute. That one feels good. Okay. We're going to wrap up there. If you enjoyed this episode or have any feedback that you would like to share based off of any reflections or just kind of knowings that dropped in while you were listening, that please share them with me. Go ahead and leave a review. I would so greatly appreciate it. That is how we grow and share the podcast. And also, you can share this episode on social media. Just take a screenshot and don't forget to tag me at Hermit and Heal on Instagram. And I think that's it. Thank you all for tuning in and listening, and I will see you all next time on the Intuition Playground.